we're testing here, and we are getting no feedback. So, all right. So this is the official first podcast of the second season of Psych, and I'm one of the hosts, Kyle, and we don't know. It may be done in post-production, but you can introduce yourself, the co-host.
Well, I'm John, coming to you in stereo. As we're signed on here to talk to you about Psych, about the season premiere episode spoofage of American Idol.
And do we want any music, or we could do music? It would almost fit with the kind of theme of that episode, but I could put something on. I don't have the music or the theme music right now.
Well, if we had some Tears for Fears or some Michael Jackson Thriller, we could maybe throw that on.
So in the future, we'll hopefully be able to have some kind of music and also 2 microphones, and we'll be clear on whether this echo effect that we're noticing is an issue for this recording or not. But we'll know that in the post-production stage. So we'll talk about tonight's episode, the premiere. The first observations I can make, I guess, is that it appears that the Gus character has loosened up and changed, evolved, whatever you want to say. But he's more relaxed around the cops, around Sean even, around Julie out of Spores. Him and I would actually say the Lassiter character as well, and the Chief. It's like overnight, however how many months since the finale from last season, they all became just kind of in sync and used to the way things were or have become.
Well, also Lassiter and the Chief have different haircuts now, so I don't know if that's a factor or not. Gus looks the same, Sean looks the same, everyone else looks different around them. But for tonight's episode, I like the usage of Tim Curry was great, including watching Tim Curry spar with Sean's father. That was excellent.
Yeah, it was, although it was kind of, it was a parody of the Simon Cowell, American Idol, blah, 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 although it kind of got exaggerated a little bit. I liked it, but there were points in the episode where I was kind of thinking, okay, we know you're trying to be Simon, da-da-da-da-da, you're not Simon, the joke's been good, but I don't know if it has to go as long as it had. But I guess if you accept the fact this is a parody of American Idol, it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but it was Tim Curry being Tim Curry, doing as Tim Curry does, This is a guy who was in, Rocky Horror and did Spam a lot, did Legend. So he's all about the over-the-top, big gesture performance. I also liked the Gina Gershon spoofing the drunken Paula Abdul was a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah, well, for anyone new to the show or remembering Blanchett, that's kind of a big shtick of the show to kind of do pop culture reference and implement it into the storyline. I also would say that it's pretty obvious they wanted to find a way to use the musical element that they've done with the Psych Outs last season, now this season, of course. They've done the singing, and you look online, you can see the performances, outtakes and such. They found a way to implement that into some story, a sort of episode, and then it turns out to be the premiere, which made sense. And for American Idol is the most popular show on all TV, or American TV at least. So, but I did like the scene with Corbin Burnson too. Although it was brief, when he was going up against Tim Curry, that was good.
Well, unlike a lot of the ones from the first season, this didn't seem as much of a Sean-centric episode as the other ones. This seemed more an ensemble effort. Whereas some of the first season ones, Sean's kind of the dominant center of attention with his psychic escapades. And also, of course, I like Jules trying to teach Sean and Gus to dance for the competition. That was an excellent scene.
Seems like the end of last season, Juliet was sort of getting a rapport with both Sean and Gus, especially Sean. And this is now the springboard to that, and it probably from now on we'll see her even be working with. Eventually, she may discover. That's the biggest mystery within the whole scheme of the show: is will she ever discover the fact he's really not a psychic? But maybe she'll understand or realize he does have the enhanced senses, at least. But she might eventually become the third wheel of Psych, the agency, and beyond doing the dance choreographing and everything else.
Yes, it remains to be seen where we're going with that. I didn't get much of a sense of next week's episode from the preview thing they showed us as far as what they're going to do with it.
I don't know. It looked interesting. I mean, the whole thing with dinosaur, they're digging bones, and I mean, it looks like a typical previews you see for them. They don't show you everything with the plot. They show you like a little segment, but you don't know like central characters or whatever, guest stars generally. So we'll see. I don't know. It's the first episode, and this is going to be. I think it's going to be like Kyle XY, a longer season. It's going to at least be a two-parter, so we have now 10, 15 episodes, and then we're going to get a break, and then a second half of the season. So we'll see. I think the show last year was trying to get its legs. It has its legs. It sort of found its niche, and now they're not really under pressure. This is a brand new show. How long is it going to last? I think it's found an audience. It's only going to grow. Its audience is only really going to grow. So like you and I and maybe some others out there, we feel this is a well-warranted show. It needs more of an audience, or it deserves an audience, and it's one of the best shows on TV.
I'd be curious to know how much of the Monk audience also watches Psych or vice versa. Like how many people watch the one and stay tuned for the other one. Be curious to see what the stats are on that.
A lot of, since I've noticed, a lot of people do watch both. Actually they kind of, in some ways, get them. They don't get them mixed up. They kind of think of them. They kind of say USA. They kind of have the same kind of shows. Dead Zone is kind of similar as well, even now this new show, Burn Notice. But there's a definite audience that's crossed over. Even the ads they've shown on USA where they've had Sean and Monk character, and they've had the Dead Zone character. I'm forgetting the character's name, Anthony Michael Hall, on those little ads they did last year. So there's kind of a thematic style to their shows, but they all have an individual, premise. They're not exactly. They're all detectives of some kind of ability. But yeah, no. At least from what I've read online, there's definitely an audience that watches Psych after being into Monk or watching Monk every week.
I think they need to do the Monk Psych crossover episode. We have to have maybe Monk guest appear on Psych or vice versa, or do a two-part episode that crosses over between the two shows.
Yeah, you might. There was one ad I remember. They were like analyzing some crime scene. They had like an outline of a body on like a sidewalk thing, and I think it may have been outlined like in pebbles, and so Monk is like counting the pebbles in a certain number, but they were like sort of both trying to solve the crime at once and implementing their special ability, so maybe it'll happen. Unfortunately, you and I both would love to see all these crossovers, and they don't always happen, like the Heroes thing with what was it, Studio 60 or something that never actually happened. They talked about, or a Medium, but maybe that was just more of gossip than we always want them and they never happen.
I don't know how the Studio 60 one would have worked. I mean, Dule Hill was on the West Wing, and a couple of the people from the West Wing went on to Studio 60, so maybe. Well, also, both shows did take place in Southern California, so I mean, maybe that would have lent itself to something. And they were both NBC shows. But Studio 60 is gone, so that won't be happening now. But still, they need to get Elizabeth Shue to appear as Jules' aunt, I think, seeing as Maggie Lawson's kind of like the Elizabeth Shue of our generation.
And Elizabeth Shue's finally back acting. She was in that movie, so maybe she'll start doing it, because she was out of Hollywood for a number of years, maybe. But, again, that's the sort of thing where they look alike, they would fit, but unless you know someone or they have contacts, the stars align. It's more of just an idea, but who knows? Maybe it will happen. We did see George Takei last year, at least.
One thing I also want to comment on was I finally got to see the movie Model Behavior on the Disney Channel, which was Maggie Lawson doing a dual role, playing this ordinary girl and also playing a supermodel. Which, if you're fans of Maggie Lawson and Psych and have not seen this, it's worth tracking down and seeing. Although it does include Justin Timberlake, who's not one of my favorite actors.
She also actually, for fans of her or Psych or whatever, she also did guest star on that sitcom on CBS last spring sometime, Rules of Engagement, I remember. The show wasn't exactly my thing I'd be watching, but I did tune in for that one particular episode for her to see in that. Her role was kind of limited, though. She kind of played not a bimbo, but it was kind of a short-lived kind of role that was picked up and by one of the actors on the show, and then it was the date for the day, and then I think it was David Spade, actually. David Spade's date, and then she went off and didn't actually go home with him. But there was something else. We could edit this out, I guess. There was something else that just came to mind. Oh, the opening segment, I think, was actually really good, the way they kind of set it up on tonight's episode, where they were talking, and Gus made all those points about how it's different than every other one of them. You know, how it takes place in Southern California. What did he say? Oh, this has two people. This is a duo. You know, and he made a couple of points. We probably should try to capture some of the best quotes at some point on this podcast.
Well, yeah, that was a classic Sean Gus exchange, which is which are the best moments of the show. The Sean and Gus playing off of each other and getting into little arguments over pop cultural things. Yes, we like the. As people not living in Minneapolis would know, there was a massive number of Prince events this past Saturday, and there were a couple Prince references in tonight's episode, which we did appreciate. Well, Prince is a pervasive, icon in pop culture, so it's inevitable that Psych would make a reference to him at some point, especially with the whole 80s focus of the show. The spoofage of Michael Jackson, Tears for Fears, etc.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to judge the Psych outs at some point, or maybe they were okay, I guess. A couple of them were funny. It was an obvious thing they would probably want to use for them, because they probably shot a lot of people to audition for that extra roles, to be auditioning for the American duo thing that they were doing with those two midgets and the music, and I don't know.
It was an okay Psych out. It wasn't quite up to the standard of the usual, I thought. It was a little underdeveloped, but, maybe those will get better as the season goes on.
So, well, let's see. We're looking at, okay, we're not going to necessarily make these too short, but at this point, since we're just getting our feet wet, we probably should just see how this goes, and then later on in the season we'll expand upon these maybe a little bit longer, do more with this podcast, maybe have more of a structure, an outline kind of deal. I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll kind of do what Gus does, where it's like he doesn't give a shit about what's going on with the investigation. He wants the food at the table. That was funny with the corn. Sean, get your hands off my corn.
Yes, Gus apparently can eat prodigious amounts of corn, as we saw in tonight's episode. He likes the corn just as much as Nigel St. Nigel likes his steak, but only prepared a certain way. And he doesn't want those club marks still on it.
Actually, yeah, that's a common element of this show. Actually, I find it reminds me, and you're not a fan of, I know, and other people that watch Psych may not be, or maybe, but the whole thing with like the food or something that's cool that they both like or something, or they want, it reminds me of the Beavis and Butthead relationship when they're both going after some piece of food. And, they fight over it, basically, or, it's always the mindset of what actually is important goes away. It's like, it's almost, I hate to make this also analogy, but it's almost like a dog who basically has the one priority for food. It doesn't matter what else is going on. There's food available. I want that.
I don't know. I think Psych is a far better show than Beavis and Butthead, but, again, it is a personal opinion. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
All right, well, we'll try to do this next week, maybe in a different format, because I don't know if it's going to be A, with one mic, B, on location necessarily. I don't know what the situation is, but maybe via the phone or something. But hopefully this will be the first of a regular deal for both of us and anyone else. So thanks for tuning in.